Hi everyone, so we are now in the final part of my Blue Lagoon painting. This one is just gonna be like very basic final touch-ups at the moment. I'm just setting up my palette. I already have some titanium white, Naples yellow hue, cadmium red deep, and then a bunch of other colors that I'm placing down. These are just gonna be for the touch-ups. I'm not really too worried about trying to like do any crazy detail work here. I'm just trying to make touch-ups and finish it finally because I'm tired of staring at this painting. And then at the end of this video, or after some of the touch-up parts, I'm going to show you a color mixing hack. So if you are struggling to figure out which colors you need to mix in order to achieve certain tones for realism, certain muted colors, if you're just looking at a reference and thinking, oh my god, where do I start? Which colors do I mix? I'm going to show you a very quick and easy hack that you can use to help you. Some of it I use myself, but usually my eyes are just kind of like, or my brain is just used to mixing colors at this point, so I kind of understand just by looking at a color which colors I need to mix to get there. But if you are struggling with this, the method I will show you at the end of this video hopefully will help you. So let's begin. So I'm starting off by taking some Naples yellow hue, some solvent-free gel, and radiant violet. And then I held it up to the canvas, and it wasn't quite the color that I was looking for, so I didn't really end up using it. I added some radiant magenta to my palette, and then I'm adding that color to the one I mixed with some titanium white and adding some solvent-free gel. I very often use solvent-free gel for the final touch-up layers. It's just a very smooth, beautiful, buttery kind of texture to it. And this color is like a very pale pastel, very light kind of like orange peach color, but it's basically just for those water highlights that I'm just kind of intensifying slightly. And I'm also like hesitating on where to put them, trying to figure that out. And then I do erase things with my hands. Probably not the best approach, but you know what? I don't care. In the moment, I'm just like, I don't want to grab a paper towel. I'm just going to use my finger, whatever. So I went over and moved my palette in the editing. Now I'm taking some radiant violet and radiant blue, and that combination just kind of helps blend that bright warm color in with some of the bluer tones that you're seeing that the highlight on the water fades into. It's just kind of like a transition color, I guess. I'm just trying to make those water highlights stand out more. So then I'm taking radiant violet again, just placing it in varying parts of the transitions between the highlights and the blue parts of the water. Then going back to the warm peachy color with my solvent-free gel, and then moving on to the other side back again, just to work on some of those highlights, make them a bit warmer. Trying to figure out the right tone because that one seemed a little bit too warm and a bit darker than what I needed, so I'm going back over it with the lighter color. It doesn't really register on camera that there's really much of a difference, sadly, but there is. At least I can see it in person. These are all just very subtle, minor changes that, to me, they make a difference. Hopefully they register on camera somewhat. A lot of times I edit these parts out completely when I'm doing my YouTube time lapses because you really can't tell all that much. Like, I'll leave little bits and pieces in, but some of the most subtle details just don't register in the time lapse, and I kind of just cut them out. Nobody notices. So I just mixed in some more radiant violet with radiant blue, and just going back to some of the blue parts here in this painting, just trying to add that back to certain areas. And then I'm switching back and forth between the warm tones I made and then the blue parts. And then going back with my finger eraser. Yeah, and I'm just kind of intuitively looking at my reference and my painting and seeing like what area do I need to smooth out? What do I need to kind of build on a little bit more? And I'm just kind of dragging like a light blue shadow or highlight into some of the shadow there, trying to give the water a little bit more shape. So then I added a little bit of ultramarine blue to that color just to make it a bit darker, and then erasing with my hand again. So I'll put like a little test brush stroke down to see if I like what I created, and then if I don't, I'll erase it. And I am painting on top of a dry layer. I forgot to mention that earlier, but I wait for my layers to dry before continuing on with future ones. That's just how I like to work. I like to take my time with my paintings. There's hardly ever a time where I finish a painting all in one sitting. That is just not not how I work. So yeah, and for that reason, I think oil paint isn't necessarily a medium that's for everyone, because people work differently, and I personally like to take my time. So I did just bring in some dioxazine purple along with a little bit more ultramarine blue. And then I'm just going into some of the other slightly darker parts and making some test strips and then erasing them, test brush strokes, I mean. But I couldn't quite figure out exactly which color I needed. And so I just kept testing all kinds of different ones within the blues and the purples, and just trying to see what I can get to make it work. And then I added some burnt umber. So what the burnt umber does is it makes it a little bit grayed out and slightly more muted. Some of these darker little shadows in the water that I'm painting on right now, they also have like the mountains and sky kind of combined into that reflection. So it's not exactly like a dark blue. It's got a bit, how do I say it? Yeah, it's just got some of those browns in there combined with the blues in the water. So that's sort of why I brought that color in as well, because it wasn't quite so saturated. It was a little bit more grayed out, and I did see some browns in there as well. They're very, very subtle. It's not like you want to put down a dark brown or anything, because you have to take into account that whatever is reflected in the water is also mixed with the colors of the water and the reflection behind it. So behind the subject that's reflected, I meant, not behind the water, because that doesn't make sense. So yeah, at this point I'm just kind of experimenting with my brush strokes and trying to make that look decent. And yeah, I occasionally look back at the camera just to make sure it's still angled properly. Sometimes I'll tip the camera and not even realize I did it. Kind of happens a lot, sadly. And then I'll smooth it out with my hand. This is a very commonly occurring thing that I do. So then I'm bringing in more radiant blue with some ultramarine blue. There is a little bit of the radiant violet in there, and adding my solvent-free gel. And then this is one of the highlights that isn't quite like the bright ones with the yellow of the sky reflected. This one is a little bit more of like a grayish, very light blue / purple. And I'm just trying to intensify some of those shapes there, make them a little bit more defined. This part is rather boring. We're just gonna speed it up here a little bit and move things along onto some of the other parts. So now I'm taking dioxazine purple and radiant violet and just combining it into that color, the blue one that was there. And this creates a more purple color, which I then smudged out with my hand. a common theme for this painting right now. And then I'm going into some of those upper parts there where you see a lot more purple. I had like a mist illusion going on there, like fog or steam, I guess. And so making that purple blurry looking transition helped make it look more real. And yeah, at this point I'm just blending stuff out with my hand and trying to place down some more of the varying water shapes with different brush strokes. I don't think I'm trying to replicate the reference exactly. I'm just kind of improvising at this point, because I think I would definitely go crazy if I tried to recreate every single water ripple exactly as is. I don't really aim to do that often. I've tried many times, and it does drive me absolutely crazy. And in instances like this, when the water isn't as crazy, not that many colors to work with, you can get away with improvising so long as you understand how water reflections work. And when you have the example in front of you, you can just kind of go off of that, make something similar. So then I went back to the lighter color there, the warm highlight color, and I'm just, you know, switching back and forth between different colors and different parts of the painting. So now I'm going back to those little highlight ripples that have the lightest color on them. They're reflecting the brightest part of the painting, which is the sky. And again, it's pretty hard to see exactly what I'm doing with these minor touch-ups, but in that case you just saw me take some radiant magenta, Naples yellow hue, a little bit of cadmium orange deep, and titanium white. And so I've got this like very warm color that's reminiscent of the sky, but it's not exactly like the sky. So just painting on some minor highlights. These are important parts to the painting, and they do make a difference. It's just not a very big difference. I mean, to me it is, because it's, you know, the difference in how real it looks, I guess. And some would argue that you could have just left it alone. It was fine before, and like I didn't have to do any of this stuff to it. And I don't necessarily disagree, but it's just what I felt like doing. I felt like these tones needed to be a bit warmer, and that's what I'm doing here. So then I brought in some radiant violet again with some of the lighter colors I already had on my brush. And then I'm going to paint some of the slightly darker parts in between the highlight parts, as weird as that sounds, but just to not make it look like all those highlights are just all fused together. I'm still trying to create some illusion of there being background ripples as well, and those are just very tiny horizontal brush strokes, very subtle, versus the closer the water is, you have more bigger shapes, more horizontal lines and things like that. And the further away you get, you just have a lot of horizontal brush strokes, and they get smaller and smaller the further away you get. So yeah, that's pretty much what I'm doing. Just kind of switching back and forth between the blue tones and the light highlight ones. And so yeah, I'm just working on those ripples there, trying to add a little more variety in the water ripples, and that's why I'm just kind of making those horizontal brush strokes. I'm just going to speed these parts up here by double the speed, so you can sort of see it a little bit better. I feel like watching it in real time, it makes less sense than watching it from a faster speed. The brush strokes and colors I'm placing down make a lot more sense to me watching it back sped up that way. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. So now I'm taking ultramarine blue along with burnt umber and a tiny bit of dioxazine purple, and I'm just combining all those colors. There are some of the lighter ones in the brush as well. I'm not going for something super dark, so that's fine. And then I'm just placing down some strange darker ripples that I saw in places like there that looks strange, but it was there in the reference, so I just kind of trusted it and put it down there. And then I'm also adding a little bit of that color to that ripple and some there, and they were just these weird looking bubbles. I ended up not liking how that looked when I placed it down, so I just smudged it out a bit to, I don't know, I thought it would look good there, but then I did it and I was like, you know what, never mind, I'm gonna smudge this. So yeah, and then going back to the lighter tones, once again, same area, just kind of putting in a bunch of horizontal brush strokes, trying to make it look like there are ripples happening back there and the water is in motion. Once again, just going to speed this part up here so you can just quickly see these brush strokes I'm putting down. They're completely optional. It's not like there's something that needs to be followed step by step. This is why I'm speeding it up. It's just kind of an example. Like, look at these little subtle changes that I'm just standing there technically. And then we're going to move on to the other side of the painting. I did do some touch-ups on the right side where there's more blue. So then for this part, you can see the color on my palette. It's like a very bluish color. It had a little bit of purple in it and burnt umber to make it a little bit grayed out so it's not quite so saturated. And I'm just like kind of aggressively going over what's already there, trying to fuse the sky and the water horizon a little bit so that there's not as much of a clear, distinct line, because in the reference it was more blurred, I guess. And then just going back to some of the other parts of the ripples and making them a more vibrant, not more vibrant, I guess a more opaque color, because it did seem a little bit transparent to me at that point, not quite as deep of a color as I wanted. So I'm just kind of going back over those parts, and yeah. And then let's move on to the colors. So I'm going to show you guys one way that I like to determine how I'm going to mix certain colors. So this is my reference, the Blue Lagoon reference that I used for this painting. And so what I do is I usually open it up in either Photoshop or just my image viewing app on my Mac. And if you zoom in, like really, really close onto the little pixels, you can see all the different colors. I don't know why that happened just now. Okay. For some reason it's deciding to do that. Okay. But you can see, like, here you've got more purples. Here it's looking like a little bit more of a grayish green. And then here again, more purple. Over here is like a bit of a lavender color, and then you've got some bluer tones here. I'm seeing a little bit of greens, a little bit of like a pale peachy color, some pinks. And so as you do this, like, this is always how I figure them out. And also, if you can't really tell that well, I hate those pixel thingies, you can select the eyedropper tool and just select an area, and then it shows you that color. Or just like pick any area. Something else you can do is pick a very like frequently occurring color. So like that one, which is in the sort of like highlights of the water. And then you can make a brand new image. And then just fill it with that color so you can see it so much better. And there you go. That is pretty much the color that is in this area. Sometimes it helps to do this because you can actually like see the color on itself or by itself, isolated away from all these other colors, because when you have these like purples next to it, you zoom out and it kind of like, it makes it harder to see what's actually there, I guess. It's a little distracting. So let's see here. Let's, once again, all right, let's go this area. I mean, every single pixel is slightly different, so you just want to pick one that kind of looks like it matches. So let's try this color. And then that is this area right here, just like a general color for that area. And again, if you like zoomed out a bit more, you can't tell that well like what is really there unless you have like eyes that are super used to this. So normally what I do is I print my references. In this case I didn't, but as you see in my older color mixing demos, I will hold up my palette knife up to the reference and sort of like use that to gauge if it's the right color. So here, let's pick this color. This is like a grayish, bluish lavender. Here's a little bit more lavender in that section. This one's more blue. But overall, I would say that this is the color. It's like a grayish, kind of gray, honestly. Like it looks more blue there. Let's try that again. Different pixel. This one's a slightly lighter one. But overall, it appears to be like a very gray color. Let's see where it falls on that spectrum. Yeah, so it's in the blue section, but it's way far out to the gray area. So, yeah, this is a fun way to be able to tell. So, like, looking at where it falls on the, like, actual color spectrum, I guess, will help you as well. Let's try this with this color right here. So, like, this general area seems to have, like, this, brownish, like warm pink, not pink tone. I don't know how to describe it. Like these aren't colors I know how to describe. Okay, so like to get this color, I would probably use some burnt sienna, some ultramarine blue, some titanium white. See where that goes. So if you click on that, it shows you where it falls. So here we have like, it's in the red section with, again, in the more gray area. And if you were to use ultramarine blue with any type of like browns, it will help gray out the color. Kind of like neutralizes the warm tones, basically. Makes a nice gray. Depending on how much you add, of course. So that's just one way to approach it. Let's see. I guess I'll do it with another color. Where can we go here? Alright, let's try one of these dark tones. So, you can see it switches around. Like, they're all sort of in the same range, but I'm going to go with this color right here because I'm seeing that pixel. Oh, crap. Alright, that right there. I'm seeing that appear a lot more. So, let's go fill. You can see that color. I mean, when you zoom in far enough, you don't really have to do the eyedropper thing, but it does help a lot. So let's pick this area here and see how different it is from the previous color. I know I could just press F5 or whatever, I just don't feel like it. Alright, so that color was hardly any different. And then let's see where it falls. So this one is on the more like, it's closer to like turquoise, I guess, and it's not that far into the gray, which you can obviously tell there's a color there. So yeah, hopefully this is making sense because this is pretty much how I get my colors to make sense and look accurate, and yeah, makes my life much easier to do it this way. If I am using a computer reference, of course, if you're using a printed reference, then what you can do is you can put the eyedropper tool on different parts. So like print your reference, and then you do the same thing. If you really are struggling with seeing colors where they are, you can make an eyedropper tool and then make these squares and then arrange them out on, let's say, a bigger surface area. And then you can print it out. So for example, let's just make a quick image file here. Okay, I could just paste that square on there, right? And then I'm just going to do Command Z. We'll just go through the older colors. And then you can paste these on sort of a little bit away from each other, next to each other, whatever you want. And I personally don't print out these squares of colors, although I want to. I'm going to try and make a color mixing demonstration pretty soon, and I think I will be demonstrating this example or this method or whatever to help sort of like better see colors. But for the most part, I feel like with enough paintings I've done, I've never actually had to do this. I kind of do that. It's a bit similar to just like zooming in, you know, and you can see all the pixels very easily. You've got, you know, like purples and blues and pinks, and let's see, I'm seeing a little bit of green in this section here. I guess it's gray. See, when colors are next to each other like that, they appear a bit different. So the color that I just selected, let's see where that falls. Ooh, this one is more on the orange side, but still heavily gray. So even if it looks gray like that and you don't know which colors to use, you can click on that little area and it shows you where it falls on the color spectrum, so you can figure out, okay, so this has orange in it, and as it goes down here it can be brown, so you can use like orange and brown and white and some gray tones to make this color. So it sort of unlocks the puzzle for you. If you look at a color and you don't know how to mix it, this shows you which colors are in it, you know? At least that's how I kind of look at it. Alright, let's put the last square down. So you can see these colors are very, very close to each other, but still separate. So yeah, this kind of looks like those Home Depot paint splotch or paint swatch booklets when you're figuring out what to paint your house with. That's what this reminds me of. But yeah, so these, you know, it almost looks like the reference could have saturated colors and the painting could have saturated colors, but in reality, it really doesn't. And I feel like I should have used more of these purple tones for these areas of the painting, but I didn't. I used like very heavily blue tones, and they kind of appear that way to me. So yeah, anyways, so that's one example. Hopefully you found this a little bit helpful, and hopefully if you're struggling with mixing colors, this will make it just a little bit easier for you. And if you don't have Photoshop, I'll give you another example you can use. Okay, so unfortunately, it's going to have these stupid ads, which it didn't used to have like 8 years ago, but now it does. Alright, so you can't really use it the same way that you would. Alright, so this unfortunately sucks to work with. But you know what, I'm just gonna try and do what I can. Anyway, so I've now, because I hate this program, but you know what, it'll work. You can navigate this little section up here, drag it to wherever. So let's see. Got some water. Let's try that same thing that I was doing. Where's the eyedropper tool? Right here. Color picker tool, that's what they call it. That's pretty appropriate actually. So let's go like just right here, for example. Click on that, and once again it shows you where the color is, and again you can see it's got orange, browns, gray, titanium white. So like if it helps, you can look at the corners, which colors are in the corners, and if you have these colors, so like black, orange, white, you should be able to get right there. Let's see. Let's pick this one. Where does this fall? In the same area, actually. Oh wait, hold on. So this has like multiple things. I think this one is different. Sorry guys, I'm getting confused right now. Okay, let's pick that. Where does this fall? So if you have like a pink, a black, and a white, you should be able to get this specific gray. Obviously, you're going to need way more of these two colors than that one,
because it's way on the far end of this, but you'll be able to. And if you don't have pink, you can make it. So this basically, like, it unfolds the puzzle for you. So you eventually you'll be able to do all of this in your mind without having to rely on it. But if you do struggle, it's a little hack you can use. So we just picked this little area right here. My computer's lagging. Let's see where this falls. Okay, so you got like a very like blues, black, white. Obviously these corners, like, you get the idea, but it tells you where it falls. So you're gonna need way more gray tones. So like black and white or grays and white, whatever colors you have, and then a little tinge of blue. Preferably a darker blue if you have it, because as you can see, it's on this side, which is the darker area. So yeah, hopefully that makes sense. And this is like a free program that you can use. It's pretty annoying. I definitely prefer Photoshop, but this is just a website you can go to, you know, and it's going to help you figure out the colors. Alrighty, so hopefully this demo was helpful. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye, guys!